Well, Bill, I've never had this happen before.
Yeah, it's weird. You're live. It says on Facebook you're live also now.
Yeah, I understand that, but I mean, oh, here we go. Now they're starting to come in. Okay. Oh my God, that's weird.
Yep.
Yeah, I understand it, but wow. Okay. Well, everybody, I've got to apologize so much for this. They give me the big honor of being introduced the new inductees to the 2023 Paintball Hall of Fame, and I got a couple of great guests on tonight. Some very, very high profile guests, and I cannot believe that happened. That is absolutely amazing. Well, it looks like it's coming back to life now, Billy.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah,
I hadn't seen that before either.
You know what? Well, what happened was my Facebook thing clicked off.
Yeah,
that's what it was. It was going on. Hey, Paul. Hi, everybody. Guys, I appreciate you guys hanging in here with me. Yeah. The viewers are starting to come back in now. It is alive. He is alive, they said. Wow, I got to tell you. Now we got to get a hold of my buddy again and hope that he clicks back on. So, if you can hear me out there, if you're watching, Jeff, click in. All right, everybody. I got to tell you, first of all, I've got to start by apologizing. I'm going to announce all 2023 inductees into the Paintball Hall of Fame tonight, and I've got a couple of great ones on. The way they do it now is the Paintball Hall of Fame goes back and they figure out what have this person done for the sport of paintball over the years. And the two that I've got on tonight have done an enormous amount of things for the sport of paintball. Great guys also too. And you're going to know who they are. You're definitely going to know one of them for sure. This guy, he does some of the best videos and some of the coolest things out there. And he's got a heck of a smile and a great beard. You're going to love him. So I'm not going to tell you his name. You're probably picking up on it already, but I'm going to let you know in a little bit here. So, Bill, I'm going to click you off. I want you to get a hold of Jeff and tell him to click back on again if you would. Okay.
Okay.
All right, everybody. So let's start real quick. I got to give my things here real quick. We've got the WCPL here. Now we've got all our guests back again. I don't know what happened. We lost our Facebook page. But everything seems to be up and running very, very good now. So I'm loving it. And yep, here come our viewers. Thank you so much, everybody. Tony Diaz, Joshua Strata, my buddy. Very good buddy. Mr. Paul Farrell. The next WCPL is going to be in New York, and it's going to be at Paintball Sport up there in Newburgh, New York. And it's the 9th, 10th, and 11th of June. So I have to mention that every week because we just got done with the WCPL Florida, and it was absolutely outstanding. We had a great time. And you get a chance, Kenny Stewart, Paintball Museum. Yeah, you guys are going to want to check out WCPL. It's pretty cool. Also, I got to mention, like I told them every week, I mentioned the Montressor Classic. Frank and Jennifer Montressor have taken over the reins from their son, Tim. And they are going to have the Montressor Classic. This year is going to be at Fox Paintball, and it's in Yorkville, Illinois. And it's going to be July 29th and 30th. So if you get a chance, you're going to want to go out there and check that out. You really, really are. I'm going to give my shout outs real quick so I can bring everybody out. And now I'm going to add some names to this that are going to be coming up next week. But right now, I start every week with my buddy Tim Schloss. Tim Schloss, Tiger Stripe Camouflage. And this is a new Tiger Stripe that is actually on its way. It should be here within the next couple of weeks. And I am very excited. I cannot wait. Tim also has Gateway Paintball in St. Louis. And Tim has the last WCPL tournament of the year, and it's going to be it was terrific last year, and I think this year it's going to be even better. And then I also have to mention Mr. Dan and John Colby, Immortal Air. Dan also has Panhandle Paintball and is one of the WCPL owners down there in Florida. And I've been with these guys for like 32 years. And one of the great guys that I'm having on here tonight that is being inducted into the Paintball Hall of Fame actually hooked me up with Don, with John, with Danny. And I got to tell you, he's, you're going to like this guy. This guy has some serious history behind him that I don't think a lot of people know about. And, I was lucky to be in the loop all these years, and there's stuff I didn't even know about that this guy did for paintball. So you're going to get to meet him shortly, and you're gonna absolutely enjoy listening to him. And Mr. Bud Orr, War Game Products, Tom K, Airgun Designs. That was my second marker sponsor I had. Was with Airgun Designs for a lot of years. Love the Automag. Great, great, great marker. And then I have to mention Mr. Rainey and his wife, Juvie Boucher. They had paintball news back in the day. 2 times a month, you could go out to your local field and pick up a newspaper, and it told you what just happened, what was coming up, what was new, big games, tournaments, where all the fields were located on a map. It was like the Bible of paintball. It was just absolutely outstanding. And one of the guys we have on tonight, he kind of runs that right now online. So, but no names yet. No names yet. They are coming, though. And then I got to mention Mr. Randy Camilla. He was the editor for APG back in the day. Mr. Jerry Braun, Paintball Sport Magazine back in the day, and has Paintball Sports in Newburgh, New York right now. That's the field where the next WCPL is going to be at. And Mr. Ross Alexander. Ross was my very first marker sponsor, Line SI. I still have my original Bushmaster up there, and he was just a terrific guy, my very, very first sponsor. And Mr. Jim Lively. 2 tournaments he wanted to do every year. One was Jim Lively's Masters, and the other one was the World Cup, Jerry Brown's World Cup. It was like just like a homecoming for everybody. It was absolutely terrific. And then I mentioned every week Gino from Belkin. The reason I mention Gino is because the stuff he does behind the scenes is absolutely terrific. I think he's a great, great guy. And I wish I could tell you everything he does, but, he doesn't like tooting his horn that much. Is he a big time guy? Absolutely. Does he make a lot of money? Absolutely. He's got a huge organization. But what he does for the sport of paintball is pretty cool, too. And then my 2 young guns I mentioned every week, Mark Gong Jr. and Jaden Gong. 2 of the young guns that I think are not just great players, but just great, great kids. And the future of our sport is in their hands, and I think they're absolutely terrific. So let me bring up Bill Bailey real quick before I bring up my guests. What's going on, Billy?
Excited.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The guys going in are pretty cool. And, the 2 guys I got on tonight are very, very cool. And I'm very excited. Actually, after we're done, I'm going to invite each of them to come on so I could have a one-on-one with them sometime in the future, because what we're going to brush across tonight is probably going to be like one gazillionth of what these guys have done for the sport. A gazillionth, that's a lot, Bill. That's a lot, man. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So anyhow, let me name the ones real quick that are not going to be on tonight, that are being inducted in the 2023 Paintball Hall of Fame. It's going to be Charles Nelson, my guest from the Nelson Paint Corporation. There you go. Boy, now that's an old one right there. Yeah. Wow. 60s. Yeah. So that's oil base. Don't put that on your clothes. It'll never come off.
No, it won't.
Yeah. He used to use it to mark trees, and I understand they actually mark cattle also with it.
Cattle.
Yep. So, and then even Nelson. I guess they must be related. A couple of Nelsons there. Evan. So, and then David Freeman. David Freeman was actually one of the gentlemen we're going to have on here tonight, which is going to be very, very interesting. The 2 guys I got in here tonight, I feel so lucky, because these guys, you take all their history and put it all together, and it's just absolutely incredible what they've done for the sport over the years. And a lot of it people don't even know about. You know what? Yeah. You still awake, Bill? Still awake?
I'm still awake.
Oh, okay. I just making sure.
Find PMI ads.
Oh, don't give it away. Don't give it away. Too late.
Bad.
Too late. Yeah, too late. And Bob Long is the 6th person that's in there tonight. So you know what those 4 have done for the sport of paintball. They've done it quite a bit, but the 2 that I've got on tonight, I feel have just really contributed for so many years, and at the beginning when it really was not easy, like I say, the kids nowadays don't understand. Just it was a tough cookie at the beginning, getting paintball up and running. All this. Oh, you're a warmonger. Oh, it's bad. But everybody overcame it, and these two guys did a terrific job, and they're still hanging in there with us today. So you know what I'm going to do, Bill, is I'm going to bring them both out at the same time. Here we go. I'm going to start right now with the guy years ago. He was probably one of my first sponsors. He had a terrific company. He started out at a paintball field with his buddy. They had an idea, and he rolled it into a multi-million-dollar operation that just absolutely rocked. Please, everybody, welcome from PMI. Thanks, Bill. Mr. Jeff Promoter. How you doing this evening, Jeff?
Good. How are you, Fred?
I'm doing good, man. I apologize. I don't know what happened at the beginning. We lost the Facebook page. I was like, what the heck? This hasn't happened before. So it was interesting. Very, very interesting. But I'm glad that you got to be with us tonight. And I've got one more guy I want to bring out that, you guys have both been around a long time. You guys have both done an awful lot for the sport of paintball. And this guy's still rocking. This guy has Paintball Media. Paintball Media. Please, everybody, welcome Mr. John Amadea. What's going on, John?
How you doing, Fred, Bill, Jeff? Good to see all you guys tonight.
Well,
I understand, real quick, just to get this thing up and running here. I understand that you worked with Jeff doing some big games or tournaments way back in the day. Is that correct, John?
Well, way back in the day, I was a ref at Skirmish 1986-87 when Jeff's company PMI was doing I believe it was called the PMI North American Championships at the time. And then later, when I got into the paintball business myself, a couple of years later, Jeff was one of our sponsors for our first magazine and sponsored some events that we did. So we go back a long way. Although we don't know each other that well, we go back a long way.
Oh, very cool. Well, Jeff, you started. You started in '82. You were below the ground floor. I think you were in the basement when we started this paintball thing here. And then you jumped on the elevator and give us a little bit of history, because I know a lot of the things that you've done for paintball. But 1982, you were at a game, I guess, with your partner Freeman. And you guys decided to put something together. And wow, did you put it together? So how did that all come about? Can you tell us a little bit?
Sure. So I started before it was known as paintball. I don't think a lot of people understand a lot of that and the facts around all of that. The original concept was and there are people that understand this part of it. The original concept was a idea that was hatched in New Hampshire by a bunch of guys that came up with something called the National Survival Game. And there was a guy named Bob Guernsey who operated a business and embarked on trying to go out and sell franchises of his concept. And that's what I would call, he invented the game called the National Survival Game. And that is something that, I believe is different than what we did at PMI. And we created a sport called paintball, and two totally different concepts. And I know that the facts around what I just said are pretty convoluted, I guess is the best word. Because we never really at PMI never self-promoted ourselves as you had to do it our way and you had to call it our name and you had to pay us a license or royalty fee. And that's what those other guys were doing at the time. And those other guys failed with the concept. And we took that concept and ran with it. And we offered, basically the free enterprise system of people could do business with us if they chose. We offered a complement of equipment that was created and manufactured specifically for the end use of running a commercial paintball game field. The marker was a Benjamin Sheridan air rifle company product that was a high quality adult air gun that we had converted to 68 caliber, that was intended for commercial use, because a paintball game field operator needed something to run his business with, where he could rent them out every day and sell a bunch of paintballs through it.
There you go. Can you see that, Jeff?
Yep, that was the PGP, which was
Yep.
the second rendition. The first one didn't have a pump. The first one, Bill, as you know, was
I still got the scar on my finger from the first
a
one.
bolt action, single shot, one at a time, held 10 in the magazine. And you know, going back to the story, these guys originally had, and you're naming these the Nelson guys. They manufactured a soft gel capsule that had oil-based paintball, oil-based paint that required turpentine, mineral spirits to get the mark off. And
then it
that's what
didn't come
National
off.
Survival Game was selling to their guys, that they were selling this you know, business model to. And when we came along, David and I, we went and played one of these National Survival Games in 1982, and it was somewhere in northern Illinois, and it was some guys that bought, I guess, one of these franchises from them, and we went out and tried it. And as everybody was sitting around talking about their Rambo experiences of, you know, the excitement of going and shooting people, David and I talked about how, gee, this activity really would lend itself really well to running a business. And, you know, we could make this into a sport and really promote this as a sport worldwide, where there's competition and there's teams and there's tournaments and there's, you know, a business opportunity for the game field operator, and he could run his local game field, and he could, you know, make some money doing that, and promote the sport and be the goodwill ambassador to this activity in his local market. And so we really kind of believed in, you know, offering that business opportunity to these guys, these entrepreneurs, where, you know, they could buy the equipment from us if they chose. The products were very high quality. They could run lots of people through their game field. Very low issues with you know, repairs and maintenance on the equipment. The paintballs worked very well. We had approached this company called the RP Shearer North America Manufacturing Company, who invented the process of soft gelatin encapsulation, which is how paintballs are made, and convinced them to make us a water soluble 68 caliber paintball. And that's
They were actually my first sponsor, and it was through you.
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
PMI was the exclusive worldwide distributor for RP Shearer.
Mhm.
And so we were basically partners, and they did the manufacturing, we did the distributing and promotion of the sport. And so we went out and sold, you know, a product that we believed was appropriate for the sport, which was a ball that you could wash the mark off with soap and water.
Yeah, because you couldn't, some of the early Nelson stuff, I don't care what you did, thinner or not, you couldn't get it off. You could always see the stain there. I mean, it just, I probably got old uniforms back there that still have the stain on it, you know? So,
Right.
yeah, you know, so what you did was, you know, you took a product, you took something and had a better vision to up it, you know? And we're going to get into a little more of the stuff you did, because I don't think people really understand, Jeff, exactly your involvement in the sport of paintball back at the beginning. So I'm going to jump over to John here for a minute, but first I want to say hi to Bud Orr's watching us right now. So, you know, Bud, very, very good friend of ours, that's for sure. And yeah, so John, obviously you've been around a long time, because you knew Jeff in the 80s, or you were working, not knowing him, but working alongside him in the 80s. So I want to ask you a question. What really motivated you? Now we hear what motivated Jeff. Jeff had an idea to make things better, period. And we're going to get into some more of the stuff he made better, which is going to probably blow a lot of your people's minds. But, you know, we're going to get into that, because I've known Jeff a long, long time, and I didn't even know half the stuff he did. It just kind of even blew me away. But, John, what gave you, you know, what was your vision back in the day when you decided you have paintball media now, which is huge? What did you decide that that's what you wanted to do?
So first time I played paintball in 1985, I played for one day at skirmish and went with a bunch of friends. And at the end of the day, I told my friends, I'm going to leave my family business and I'm going to make a living doing this paintball thing. So a couple of years later, I opened a paintball field. I had a partner, and we bought a magazine, and it had product reviews in there. So for our paintball field, we ordered some of the guns that we were told were great field guns, and they were not great field guns. Actually, I should have just listened to Jeff. And then we ordered another batch based on a magazine review. And 3 or 4 times into doing this, returning guns and paying a restocking fee, I looked at my business partner. I said, man, somebody needs to start a paintball magazine that tells the truth. And he said, why not us? I said, because we don't own a computer and I'm not a writer and you're not a writer. So we did foolishly. It was 1991. We had this conversation. And in March of 1992, we dropped our first paintball magazine, which was back then called Paintball Consumer Reports International, PCRI. And that, I had that for 6 years, I believe, or 7 years, and sold that. And then worked with Gino Posterevo, publishing Paintball to Extremes magazine, and on and on. So here I am now. I believe this is 31 years of publishing.
Been a long time.
Paintball magazines without missing a month.
Yeah. No, you've been doing a great job. In fact, we all had hair back then too. I thought that was pretty cool. I kind of like that part of it. But now you've done things. Now, obviously, you did the history of paintball, which was like a 3-hour deal or something like that.
Yeah, and 3-hour and a 6-hour. We did a director's cut that was 6 hours long. Yeah.
I had the 6-hour version. But I was honored that you accepted me, put me in part of that too. I really did appreciate that very, very much.
That was a pretty easy decision, Fred.
Well, I appreciate that. But now you were, something I really promote a lot, and I've been doing it for a couple of years now. Ever since Mark Gong took his 2 sons, Jaden and Junior, out, they went out for a birthday party and Father's Day, and I had to put them on a show after that. And I got to tell you, after that, it was. I just watched it snowball. You never heard about the young guns. Now, obviously, they were out there. For sure they've been out there. But I put them on a show. Next thing I know, I'm getting calls from people all across the United States going, hey, we're doing that too. Hey, we're doing that too. And look what it's turned into now. And now you just did a video on that, on the young guns too. These kids can ball. Yeah,
we did. We talked with Mark and some other people that were involved in putting together the youth division at the World Cup this year, 2022.
Yep.
And then so we basically followed the kids around before and during the World Cup, and we interviewed about 55 of the kids in a hotel room for a couple of days, and caught some of the live footage at World Cup and a lot of the practice video leading up to the World Cup, and put together a 90-minute film, around 90 minutes, called These Kids Can Ball. By the way, that's the one film we've done that's for free for anybody to watch. So it's at paintballfilms.com. You can watch that. It's an hour and a half. It was a joy to put it together. It was awesome to see these kids just really play, good kids, really tight-knit little community they have going on with these kids. And they're like 8, 9 years old to 15. Really impressive group of kids.
Well, what's impressive is how they play. I mean, these kids, they were rocking out there, Johnny. I was at the World Cup. They were absolutely rocking. Yeah. And what's good, the reason I really talk a lot about Jaden and Mark Long Jr. is their attitude, because you can be, like I tell everybody, you can be the best player in the world. But if you come off the field and you're swearing and acting like a jerk, people that are standing there watching that might be interested in getting into paintball, they see that and it just blows, they don't want nothing to do with it anymore. So, and these kids, almost all the kids I've seen down there, in which, I got to meet a lot of new kids down there. I thought the attitudes were just absolutely terrific. And, that's an absolute plus for the future of our sport.
No doubt. Like I said, the quality of the kids, and a lot, I'm sure, has to do with the parents, because their parents are great.
Absolutely.
And the quality of their play, the quality of their behavior, just everything about them. It was such a joy to be around them at the World Cup and watch their sportsmanship and how they all really kind of bonded. They had a big meet and greet that went over really well. It was just a really good time. It was really fun putting the film together. It was it was really just a blast to do it.
Yeah, I almost made that meet and greet, but I was lost someplace. I don't even remember. I was in the car on the highway somewhere. So, but I got to tell you, they're the future of the sport. But then, you look back and you see what Jeff has done. Now, I'm going to start mentioning a few things that Jeff has done for the sport of paintball. We all know Dennis Tipman. Dennis Tipman, a great guy. I love the guy. He helped sponsor my show and everything too. But I was just totally unaware that Jeff was a big part of Tipman Pneumatics in the paintball section. Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Starting, I'll back up a little bit. So the products that PMI were involved with distributing at the time were these Benjamin Sheridan guns, and they were single action, and then we went to a pump, and we saw, David and I, the progression really needed to be into a semi-automatic gun. And we, at that point, requested for Sheridan to, put the money into the R&D and come up with some sort of a semi-automatic product, which they really struggled with that. I mean, they eventually came up with something that was a VM68, it was called. Bill, I don't know if you have any of those put up on the screen, but so, as we were out there trying to figure out how to get that done, we went to a gun show. It was called the SHOT Show, David and I. And we were walking the aisles of the SHOT Show, and we come up on this booth where there's this guy whose name was Dennis Tipman. And he was selling, it was a firearm. It was a 22 caliber scale model of a Browning 50 cal M2HB. That was a 22 caliber semi and full automatic firearm that piece of artwork was just meticulously manufactured. And he was also promoting what he had was a fully automatic BB gun that was operated with a 12 or a 7, I guess it was a 7-ounce CO2 tank that he had come up with some sort of a pin valve and an air source adapter to screw into the back. And he had this fully automatic BB gun. And we kind of said, well, gee, if this guy can make a BB gun that shoots BBs full auto, maybe we can convince him to modify this concept into a marker, or we called them markers in the day because we really didn't like the connotation with guns.
Yep.
Because at the time when we first started this sport, there was a lot of pushback about people saying this is a paramilitary activity, and this is something that's not a recreational thing. And so
I called it that for years. Yep.
So we said, hey, you know what, Dennis, can you make this thing shoot a 62 caliber? Or actually what we did is I came up with a concept of a 62 caliber ball, being that it would be easier to feed, a little bit smaller ammunition. And we convinced, and there was a lot of pushback. He said, no, I'm making BB guns, I'm making firearms. This is what I'm doing. This is what I know. And we said, hey, you know what? We'll fund this deal 100%. We'll give you 100% of the money. You develop this thing that shoots a 68 caliber ball. We'll supply the balls. We'll supply the money. We will turn you on to our distribution of all the game fields and stores that we supply all over the world. And we'll be partners. And David Freeman was the president of Tipman Pneumatics. We were 50% partners with Dennis. And we embarked on this development project. It took a year to get this marker to be a viable product. We started distributing them for Denny. Unfortunately, at the point where the gun was really, or the marker I'll call it, was a commercial viable product, then he decided, hey, you know what? I don't need you guys. This thing works. I can sell this. I can make money. I know who to sell them to now. And see you later. Bye. And so David and I put him in business. He became very successful. He brought his kid into the business. They, obviously went on to make a number of other markers, but, we were the ones that put him into business. And I know he sold it later in his life for a lot of money. And he since has passed away, which is unfortunate, but that's the true story about how he got into the business.
That's a very cool story. You brought up the VM68. A quick story from me here real quick. When you sponsored me with RP Sheriff, you had called me up. I don't know if even know if you remember this, but you called me up and you go, I've got a friend that's got a new air system coming out. I'm going to send you semi-automatic in this air system. So you sent that out to me. We went up. I used it for a tournament up in Oregon, and we went up and we won with that thing. But come to find out, that was Dan Colby, and back then it was Air America. So you are the one that actually hooked me up with Dan Colby, and it was a VM68 that you sent to me. I
Sure.
think between the marker and the tank, which I still have, I think it weighed about 400 pounds. But other than that, it just it absolutely rocked.
Well, we've actually, we kind of took a low profile in the fact that we brought a lot of these people into the business as subcontractors making products for us that PMI sold and distributed based on our reach of being in contact with people all over the world that were running game fields and operating stores. And so Danny had a local business local to us in the Chicagoland area, as did a guy named Tom Kay, which was a very similar situation, is that we had Tom was a subcontractor for us, making all kinds of different accessories and parts and helping us, upgrade the Sheridan guns. And there were a bunch of different quick loader CO2 changer devices that Tom made for us. And so, yeah, there were a lot of guys that we put in business that, we had come on board to, manufacture and supply products for us, because our thing was, we promoted the sport, and we were a distributor and marketing company. We didn't profess to be manufacturers in those days. We eventually evolved into that, but we were the distribution and the promotion of the sport. That was our function. And
Right.
a lot of these guys, or all of these guys, came along and made products for us, and a lot of them went out on their own and became very successful doing their own products. Tom Kay, Bud Orr, Dan Colby, there's
Ross Alexander.
Ross Alexander. Ross actually was very early on. I give Ross credit for coming up with the name paintball. There was, as I said, at the very early days, it was called the National Survival Game.
Right.
And as people left that concept and went off and started doing this version of that we were promoting of a sport, Ross kind of coined the phrase paintball, because it was, paintball, there's baseball, there's football, there's basketball. Yeah. So it was all about the ball. So Ross said, hey, why don't we call this paintball? So Ross had a modified, upgraded version of the Nellspot gun that he came up with, and his partner or employee, guy named Jerry Dobbins, came up with a higher performance Nelson. And we kind of brought Ross into the fold in a lot of ways as far as promotional opportunities. We gave Ross the opportunity to sponsor an event at Lively's Field called the Line SI Masters.
Yep.
We let Ross buy the headline sponsorship for that. And, that was our event and that was our thing. But we wanted to bring these people into the business and have them help build a bigger pie. And so we
played in that event.
Yeah, and so we ended up with Ross coming up with a deal where we supplied him with his own private label brand of paintballs that we supplied him. They were called Stinger.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he had a full product line of his Bushmaster gun, the Stinger paintballs, and he went out and he did pretty well with it. And
he sponsored me for years. I pushed the Bushmaster. I loved it because when we started playing Lively's tournaments, it was 15 man. It wasn't 10 man. It was all 15 man.
It was 20-acre fields in the woods.
You're absolutely right.
Guys, it was like
I loved it.
45-minute games.
45-minute games is what they were. Absolutely right. Yeah, and I loved it. That's something I kind of like about WCPL. We're trying to get back to basics and just have a good time. I love the NXL. I think it's a great. Matter of fact, I really like almost all of the tournament circuits that are out there. It just says we're just doing something a little bit different, and we're starting to catch on pretty good. People are pretty much liking it an awful lot now. So, Jeff, I'm going to get into a little bit more that you've done here in a few minutes, but I'm going to jump back over to John real quick. And John, you've always got something in the fire. You are. You wear asbestos shirts, I know, because you've always got something going, man. So now you've just finished up on the kids. These kids can ball. You got something new going now?
Yeah. So in June, we start the season 2 of the Iconic Paintball Team series. So those are 30 to 40-minute episodes featuring some of the iconic teams over the years. In the first season, we did Aftershock, we did Bad Company, we did Fred, Your Team,
Constant Pursuit.
Yep. So this coming season, we'll have teams like the Ironmen and the Wild Geese and Rage, I believe, Florida Terminators Rage. So we started another 10-episode season in June. That'll probably run until January. So that's our next thing that, in addition to doing the monthly magazine, that's our next big project.
Now, you got a new magazine coming out here pretty quick now, don't you? Because you do. Now, how often do they come out, John, and where do they come out on?
So it's a monthly magazine, and it's online. It's digital only. It's free. There's no cost for anything, and it is at paintball.media. There's www.paintball.media. It's not .com. And all our back issues are there. And tomorrow around 10 a.m. will be our newest issue. We'll drop our newest issue. So we're still covering, all the big events and the regional events and product stuff and interviews and, the stuff that we've always done over the years, just in a much more high-tech manner. And so we're still doing that. Yeah,
well, you reach a lot. I'll be honest with you. I used to love to hold my magazines. I got all my magazines. I absolutely loved it. But you can reach a lot more people with the digital age now. That's a big thing right there, and you can change things real quick because back in the day, once it was printed, it was printed. Now, if you have to change something, you can jump on it.
That is true. And also, you could be current. In fact, like tomorrow's issue that comes out, will have coverage of your Florida event that just took place last weekend.
Oh, excellent! Yeah, we had it was a good time. It was a lot of fun. That's one thing I just really missed in paintball was going out and having a good time, John. I like meeting people. Obviously, that's kind of my big thing. When I was down there, I got to see a lot of my old friends. Howdy. It was so cool. But I got to meet so many new guys. I have been very fortunate over the past couple of years with the people I've got to meet. Jacob Beester from Toxic Teddies, and I've just met some great people. And I know a lot of them. They watch your stuff too. They pick up a lot on that also.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how many people you can reach nowadays. Online. It's just back in the day, you would put your printed magazines in bookstores if you were lucky enough to do that and had the funding to do that. You would get them out through the paintball stores and fields and hope for the best. And most, printed magazines back then, their monthly print was, 10,000, 15,000. Of course, you had ABG that was much higher than that.
Yeah.
Cable to Extremes later, we did almost 100,000 every month. But, online, we literally, had a month 5 or 6 years ago where we had 320,000 readers.
Yeah.
We're averaging about 65,000 now, but you can reach so many more people. It's such an easier way to
well, you also have paintballmedia.com. I mean, there's a thing that you can join actually.
That's paintballfilms.com.
That's yeah.
Yep, paintballfilms.com is a monthly subscription. It's $7.99 a month, and then you get all of our original films.
Yep, I belong to that. Yep.
Yeah, but one of the cool things about that site that a lot of people don't realize is, in addition to our original films, we have tons and tons of content from back in the 80s, like different talk shows where paintball was featured, and news shows, news broadcasts where paintball was featured, and some of those date back. We have four films that date back to 1982. The third game ever played in New Hampshire was covered by ABC News. So just some really cool, old stuff that you can't really find anywhere. We were lucky enough to get our hands on, and so that's all part of the subscription as well. So
yeah, I've still got interviews here I've got on tape from Bob McGuire. Bob McGuire's Outdoors. Yep. I got tons of that old stuff like that too. So, but what do you think about some of the stuff that Jeff had going back in the day? There's stuff that I don't think anybody knew.
I think, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think one of the most successful things that PMI did as a company was built a sustainable wholesale network. That hadn't been done certainly National Survival Game didn't build a wholesale network, and I thought PMI really did were the first to do a really good job in terms of setting up a whole distribution network and making the products easier to get. And like you said earlier, didn't have to carry your name and your branding and your everything. So yeah, that's kind of what I would think. That's what I would credit PMI with. The biggest accomplishment is that wholesale network that still is intact today somehow.
Yeah. Well, I read up on his bio and stuff like that. 1 year they sold millions of paintballs, $85 million worth of paintballs. Now,
Fred,
that's some serious paintballs.
Fred, that year we sold 5 billion paintballs.
Billion, yeah. Yep. That's serious paint. That's a lot of balls.
Yeah. And what a lot of people don't understand is that's what drove the growth of the sport, because we invested a lot of that revenue and profit, because we had a majority of the market share. So it was in our best interest to promote, the activity and not just our company.
Right.
And so we did all these things to promote the sport of paintball. And, obviously there was some, benefit for us because we were the largest supplier of the ammo, but that's what funded the efforts to do that. I mean, we sponsored teams, we sponsored tournaments, we sponsored game field operators. We did marketing seminars to teach game field operators, how to run a better game field. You name it. We did like everything you could ever come up with to help build the sport.
Yeah, you sponsored me for
that was paid for by selling paintballs.
Yeah. Well, RP sharing,
unfortunately, the downfall of the whole sport was that all these guys came along later with these inexpensive, they cut corners on the ingredients, and the paintballs were really hard and they hurt a lot when you got hit. And the rate of fire thing at the time became, a big deal where people were shooting, lots and lots of paint. So you ran through your money really quickly. So between the pain and the cheap paint, it wasn't fun anymore, and it was unfortunate, but it was kind of
that still happens today. That still happens today a little bit. A lot of them try to keep a handle on it right now. You got to remember back in the day, I'd go out to a field and it was like $135, $150 for a case of paint. Now you go out there and it's $35, $40 in some places.
I paid 25 cents a ball my first time I played.
Oh, I played more than that. I bought a case of paint because when I first got my Splatmaster, I bought it from Honest John's Gun Shop. So I went down and I bought a case of paint. Now, a case of paint then consisted of 12 10-round tubes, and it was $3 a tube, so it was $36 plus tax. So, but obviously you had the Splatmaster, but we still.
But the business model in that day was with the rate of fire being a single action pump. You could play all day long.
No doubt.
You could have a great time, and it wasn't that expensive because you weren't going through that much ammo.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. These kids play X-ball now, and this just blows me away. These X-ball, they play, what do they play, John, for an hour, 5-man teams, and they're going through like 40 cases of paint in that hour.
Yeah, it's not quite that long, but yeah, it's a good long game, and they every flag hanging is a point, and until you run out of time, or
Well, that's
they go through a lot of
bunker activity kind of came along. Was the rate of fire was so high, you went through so much paint so quickly that the games could only be a few minutes. You run out of paint, you run out of money, and so that's kind of how that whole inflatable bunker thing, became a thing with people competing, and that becoming the kind of the standard of competition.
Well, when we started in the woods, you were 5 minutes before you met your opponent. Because
it was strategy. There was all kinds of things. The quality of the paint was an issue. I mean, that RP shear paint, you could shoot 60 yards and it would break on impact.
I shot it for years.
It was one shot. I mean, it wouldn't be, you'd wail on the guy with, 50, 60 shots to get a guy out of the game.
Yep. I used to do the big games, and you guys would truck them out to the big games for me. God, I'm trying to think of who the heck would come out there with them all the time. Gosh bless it. I can't think of his name now. But anyhow, yeah, you guys used to truck it out because I'll be honest with you. When I started with you, it was with RP Shira. That's the paint that I actually remember starting with, and it was you that was selling. I remember going to your shop one time. You're showing me your 50 caliber machine gun and stuff that you had. You had a pretty good shop at one time yourself.
Well, you know, it's interesting you mentioned that, Freddie, because I should probably explain. So there was another segment of our business, and that was law enforcement and military training. So
Right.
we invented or we innovated using paintball for training for, as I said, law enforcement and military, because it was a modality where they could shoot at each other, and there was stress and jeopardy because somebody was shooting back at them. Because in those days, you know, there was no training protocol where they had really any real reality to what was going on. So
Right.
we started selling to police departments and military, and actually it was interesting because at one point we started getting these calls from these kind of just obscure places that were calling us and saying, yeah, we need you to ship it to this particular Fort Bragg in North Carolina, and here's a credit card, and you know, no questions asked. And it all turned out it was, you know, it was special forces military. We're buying the paintballs and they were using them for training, and they didn't really want to tell anybody, you know, the paintball had become the standard for training in the military. So,
well, you know, I trained.
So let me just finish the story. So
yeah.
at the time, the military, and I was a young kid, I was 24 years old. They were like, well, you know, we don't want to tell people we're buying these toys from this kid. And, you know, this is what's the standard for military for training. So I ended up stumbling across the ability to buy or acquire a federal firearms license, which was called a Class 3 license, which licensed me to be able to buy and sell fully automatic weapons. And I got that license in, I think it was 1985. And so now being a licensed firearms dealer, when I would talk to police departments and military, all of a sudden now I had credibility. And I would say, hey, I could sell you the real guns, or I could sell you these training guns, and it simulates the real gun, and we can show you how, you know, it simulates that. And, you know, I established a tremendous amount of credibility being a real firearms dealer. And that's kind of how I had that whole collection when we would entertain people when you came into town to take them out and shoot real firearms. And that's how that whole thing came about.
Yeah, I never got to shoot it, but it was pretty cool. But out here, I trained the police from San Francisco, Richmond, and Oakland, California. I did it for 2 years. And we would do it twice a month down at Port Chicago down there. And we would train 50 of them at a time. And that's exactly what it was. It's all about scenarios. I would be the robber, and they would try to come and arrest me. So, yeah, I did that for years. Michael Beard and I did that. And I had a lot of fun doing it, too. It was pretty cool. But you're absolutely right. You know, when you got somebody actually shooting back at you and you actually do get hit, it makes you think, because, you know, if that wasn't the paintball, if that was a piece of lead, you know, it would be a whole different ballgame. So, but I did like that 50 caliber. It was on a tripod. I remember you were so proud of it. Oh, I could cut a car in half with this. I think you were telling me how much each bullet was too, how expensive they were.
$4 to $5 a round.
Yeah.
The gun shot 600 rounds a minute.
Now that's a toy. You know, real quick, I want to bring up, you know, I talked at the beginning of the show, you know, 2 tournaments you'd like to do every year. And one was Jerry Brown's World Cup, and the other was the Masters, Jim Lively's Masters. Now, you had a big part in Jim Lively's Masters. Am I correct?
Well, it was our event. We hired Jim to run the game.
Great. How many people knew that?
Well, we were not, you know, wanting everybody. It wasn't a popularity contest for us.
Oh, I understand.
We didn't want everybody. Oh, you know, those guys. Oh, they're our buddy. You know, this was a business, and you know, we wanted to put all these guys out there and stand on their own, you know, 2 feet and be able to, you know, do their own thing and help promote the sport. I mean, how much could David and I, do by ourselves? You know,
I understand
people in a position of being able to go out and do their thing and, you know, generate, you know, a bunch of goodwill and, you know, run events and make some money. And, you know, we paid the bill for all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, I know. You know, that's trying to make people aware of it. That's the ticket. You know, I mean, I pushed PMI stuff for quite a while, too. You know, you treated me very, very good. Matter of fact, you know, when we kind of linked up, I was kind of pretty happy being in there with you, because, you know, I liked the way that you handled yourself back then, and I liked the company back then also. You know, I thought the company was pretty good. So, and I liked your products also.
So one of those lively events I'll have to mention was, and this was about promotion and you know, making you know, publicity. So I had a briefcase that I brought from Chicago, and I think I had like $25,000 in cash.
Yep.
Right, and that was the prize for the first place team. And I
Yep.
brought that to the event, and we had a private security guy. And we had a big bowl, up on stage, and we put the cash with the briefcase in the bowl. And, we got all kinds of, press coverage that, here's the cash that people were going to, the winning team was going to, get. And, these were all things that we kind of came up with just to promote, to make this thing something, interesting and, that people wanted to participate in. And it was kind of the fun part of it.
Well, I loved it. And, plus it was good for the sport too. But, what kind of, how did you feel like competing when you seen 25 grand sitting up there knowing that could be yours, So, yeah, back in the day, it's a lot different now than what it was back then. And John's out there all the time. He actually gets out there more places than what I get out there and do. So he sees a lot of this right now. And I don't know what the prize packages are for the NXL, but they had 680 teams, John?
At the World Cup. Yeah, they did. World Cup is just an event that's nothing like, anything else in the world. It's just incredible. But, it's one of the great things about the state of paintball right now in terms of not necessarily the industry, but the game itself, is that there's so many ways to play now, right? You've got huge scenario games. You've got small scenario games. You have woods ball tournaments. You've got airball tournaments. You've got tournaments, big series in Europe and a big series in the States, and everything in between. The walk-on game is, and the woods have come back. There was that time, Jeff, you talked about, fast guns, and the other part of that was small fields and small bunkers. Fast guns, small fields, small bunkers, and hard paintballs was not good for the game. But that's kind of, in some ways, gone away. The sort of upper end, more elite players play, that airball game, and that's great. But fields are now back to, running games in the woods for new players like they should. There was a time where
it really needs.
Well, what's good about that though is, you don't have to be, because, these kids that play X-ball, they're quick, period. I mean, they are fast, but us older guys, anybody can go play woods ball. You can be fat, skinny, tall, short, slow, fast, and go out there and have a great time.
And Fred, who funds the teams that go play? It's the old, slow, fat guys, right? So you want a place for them to play.
I resent that remark.
Guys, I apologize, but I've got to get going. And I just want to tell you that I appreciate so much what you're doing, Fred. I think your heart's in the right place with this whole thing with, trying to bring back the, the fun and the excitement and, the old school stuff, which is really what it was all about when it started. And I really appreciate this appointment to this Hall of Fame thing, because I think those guys, that have the right idea about giving credit where credit is due from the old days. So, I'm very appreciative to all that. So I want to thank you for having me on the show. And I want to say, John, good to see you, and Bill, good to see you.
Jeff, I want to have you back on again as a one-on-one sometimes here in the future.
All right, great.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
My pleasure. You take it easy, my friend.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, Fred, I'll tell a quick Jeff Promoter story.
Shoot.
It was 1986, and Pev and I, who was my partner back then in the magazine, we wanted to put together a tech certification class, which hadn't been done to that point in history ever. So we got all the pieces in place, and Tom and Bud came out, and they were doing their tech certification class in DC at a big hotel, really big event. But anyway, in the weeks leading up to the event, we realized we should throw a banquet, but we didn't really have the money to do it. So I called Jeff and I said, you don't really know me that well, but I'm sure you know about our magazine. You've advertised in a little bit, and would you be interested in sponsoring this meal? And he said, sure. He said, about the magazine. He goes, I just want to make something clear to you. He goes, you can say whatever you want about me, as long as it's true.
Yeah, there you go. And that's Jeff. Jeff, I've known him for a lot of years. He doesn't pull any punches, but what he's done for the sport, I think, is pretty good. And, people just don't know what he's done for the sport. And see, that's one thing that I want to bring into view. I want people, that's why I have all my shout outs at the beginning, John, is because these guys worked their butts off back in the day to make paintball what it is now. And would paintball still be here? Probably, but would it be here in the way that it's here now? I don't believe so. I think everybody I mentioned, including I'm going to add Jeff's name to it now, I think contributed a lot to the sport of paintball, and that includes you, John. I think what you've done for paintball has been absolutely terrific. So I'm going to let you say goodbye to everybody. First of all, I want to congratulate you so much. I think that
Thank you.
it's very well deserving that you are in now. I am proud to say that you're a brother in it with me now. And I'm going to let you say goodbye to everybody. And one more time, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thanks, Fred. I appreciate it. Good to see you. Good to see you too, Bill. Just saying, it's an honor to be inducted. It's something you don't think about. When it happens, it's really a cool thing. So I'm really appreciative to those who voted me in, and I appreciate that. And I look forward to being part of the however it works as an inductee, where you get to have some say in how things go. Because I'd love to refine this thing a little bit. Some of the things could use a little tweaking, and I'd love to be part of that. And I'm sure that's already going on, behind the scenes.
Is.
I know it. Each year things get tweaked a little bit, and that's a really good thing. But again, really proud to be part of it, and thankful. And thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, and I'd like to have you back on again sometime, one-on-one, and we'll just sit and talk about paintball media. You know that don't you?
Sounds good. I appreciate you guys both. Thank you.
All right, John, take it easy. All right, everybody, that's Mr. John Amadea, Paintball Media. I'm glad he got in. I think he's very well deserving. He's been around a long time. What's that, Bill?
He's a busy man.
Oh, yeah, he's always busy. That's why he still looks so young. That's the only thing that kind of burns me a little bit. I mean, gosh, I can't stand next to him. People go, "God, Fred, you look old as heck." I tell them, I said, because I am old as heck. I don't know, man.
You invented heck.
I did. Right on. Well, Bill, that was pretty cool having those two guys on here tonight.
Yep.
Yeah.
Glad to see them both in there.
Yeah, me too. It was pretty darn cool. So I'm going to say goodbye to everybody, and then I'm going to say goodbye to everybody, and I'll see you in the green room.
All righty. See you guys. See you, everybody.
It's Mr. William Bailey, everybody. Wow. Very cool guest tonight. John Amadea and Jeff Promoter. What can you say? Absolutely. Two very cool guys, very well deserving. And I am so very, very glad that I got to mention everybody. One more time, it is Charles Nelson, Evan Nelson, David Freeman, Bob Long, Jeff Promoter, and Mr. John Amadea, Paintball Media. So please, everybody, remember, individually, we can do a lot for paintball, but collectively, we all work together. We can really make paintball bigger and better. And that's what we want to do from here on in. So let's just all work together and keep everything in a positive light for paintball. Okay. So please, until next Tuesday, 7:00 Pacific time on Facebook on Flagpole Productions, everybody, please play hard, play safe, play fair, get out there and play paintball. See you next week, everybody.